Hey, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this session, Inspiration Information for Black Women Poets. I'm happy you're here with us as part of 1455's fifth annual StoryFest. Let me just start by saying every spring, at least three things are guaranteed. One, we're going to adjust our clocks. Two, we're going to file our taxes. And three, I'm going to send an email out to this crew to say, are we getting together again to read some poetry at the 1455 StoryFest? And to my tremendous delight, they always say yes. So here we are. This is a special reading. It debuted at our 2020 festival. We continue it. And here's the deal. We are featuring some of the best contemporary poets who are going to have some time to stretch out and read from their work and tell us what they're up to. I'd like to personally, right at the beginning, thank all of you for being here. We have a couple that may join us in progress. If not, we've got more time to stretch out. I want to keep my comments brief. I want to get right to the poetry. And by request, because she's so busy today, because she has a book coming out this week, which I want her to talk about a little bit. And we are certainly going to trumpet that out throughout the week. But let's kick it off with our friend, Monica Prince. Our amazing poet friend who is about to drop a book. She teaches activist and performance writing at Susquehanna University in Pennsylvania. She's the author, or I wouldn't even say forthcoming. She roadmap How to Exterminate the Black Woman, a Choreopoem, and Letters from the Other Woman. She has also managed the Santa Fe Writers Project, the co-author of the suffrage play Pageant of Agitating Women with Anna Andes. Her work has appeared everywhere, including Texas Review, the Rumpus, MadCap Review, American Poetry Journal, and elsewhere. Monica, first of all, thank you for being here. Secondly, congrats on the book. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here with you all. Yes, I have a book coming out. It drops July 1st, which means y'all should already have it when you see this. And it's called Roadmap. This is a beautiful cover. I'm so jazzed. It's amazing. It's coming through Santa Fe Writers Project. It's a choreopoem that focuses on a young Black man named Dorian who is trying to thwart his allegedly inevitable cause of death, which is homicide. And it's an intense choreopoem. I just saw it premiered, like someone just put it up in Paterson, New Jersey this past weekend, and it was gorgeous and amazing, and I cried a lot, and it was magnificent. It was so good. And so I just want to tell you all about this awesome show, and those are all of my words. So yeah, so that's what's happening.
Yay. Yay. Congratulations. And what an honor for us to hear some of this stuff right hot off the presses.
I'm so excited. So I'm going to read a couple of poems for you from Roadmap. And so because it's a choreopoem, there are many characters. The main character is Dorian, but Dorian has basically been plucked out of his life and been sent into a universe in which he has the ability to see if it's nature or nurture that guarantees his death sentence. And so he is guided by an ageless ancestor named the Novelist. So I'm going to read her first poem, and then I'm gonna read her second poem, and then I'm gonna read a poem later in the book. All right, so this is called The Novelist. You do not need to believe in a God to see me. I exist between blinks during the early hours of dawn, right before sleep leaves your lungs. I speak in whispers, live on the edges of your skin, walk through walls. This is not hyperbole or a metaphor. If it is easier, call me ancestor, muse, but God may be too much for your grasp. If you would rather be precise, call me ethereal, haunt, immortal challenge of depth and universe. I am your womb, your missing rib, your first breath, your fear, the prayer for safety every time you leave home. I am conception during purple rain, legs split and sliding down a steel pole, the crown rightfully placed on your head. I am not a dream. You are not hallucinating. This is not hell or heaven or purgatory or nirvana. No, colored child. I am not an angel or demon, not a courier between dimensions. I am the novel of the world, endless passages of every life before and after you. I know how this ends, how dirty your hands will be, what good they will do for us all. Here is the ending. Child, a shot, a name. I say name, but I mean hashtag. His name is Dorian, and you know where it starts. A native scalped, an African snatched, wars and blood and bodies lined from sea to shining sea. You only listen to the song of the missing. I have learned to sing in the voices of the dead, to rifle through graves and brush off headstones until I find the ones that belong to me. They all belong to me. The fallen, the slain, the broken and tired and joyful and excellent. He is excellent, Dorian. And you know how he dies. It is good. It is a good death. The same one we all accept with our bodies stained by melanin, the same map made of history stitched into our cells. There are Black people in the future. They grow up, they grow old. You have a choice. Will you love him now when he can still smell the flowers you present? Or will you only love him later? A hashtag for the cause, another morsel stuck in the bloody teeth of white supremacy's maw. Remember his name, Dorian. Remember his breath, his laughter, his luxury made flesh. He exists in the future, and his death is good. It is good. Believe me, when he dies, it is good. All right, I have another poem, but my earring fell out. Wait for it. It's happening. There we go. Okay. Okay, so later on, we get to meet a bunch of different characters. We meet his grandmother, his father, his mom, and his best, and his beloved, like the woman he loves. And so we are going to read a poem from his mother that pops up later. And this is called Insomnia, Love, and the Black Man. Lighting up very weird all of a sudden. In the dark, my beloved sleeps easily. I can't imagine how. Prone to tears in public and clutching him desperately, I lie awake, counting my heartbeats in time to his inhale, exhale, inhale. As a child, white spaces enveloped me. I convinced myself that my dark body would fare safer in the presence of the oppressors. I was wrong. The first white boy I ever loved carried a knife to school every day, called it protection, should have called it a promise to bring a gun tomorrow. And then he did. He killed a boy his age over some weed, 2 in the chest, 1 in the head, sounded like a rap song, a bad cop drama. I couldn't love him anymore after I saw what his hands were capable of, what they had always been able to do. What privilege, an inheritance he never questioned. Generations of bad behavior, entitlement, and misplaced rage taught him to solve fear with violence, to take what's his even if it doesn't belong to him. The last white man I ever loved did exactly what I expected him to do, what every story that starts with murder must include. He knew he could do whatever he wanted because every man before him had done the same thing. Of course, his body could rape and pillage. What else was it made for? This is not to say that white man cannot be loved. that colored girls like me cannot open for them, produce legacies of joy with them, plot new maps of uncharted territory where they can escape the damage they wreak. No, I mean, I cannot celebrate another loving day as someone's rebellious streak, risk a racist grandparent bleaching my baby's skin in the bathtub, defend a ballot cast in favor of my extermination. I mean, I fell in love with a Black man, and I don't think I'll sleep soundly ever again. I worry for my beloved Black man, asleep beside me, father of my child, someone's son and brother and friend. I want to keep loving him, to accept the probability that the anger of a bitter white man might force him out of my bed and into the ground too soon. But love isn't logical here, as it conquers the possibility of irrevocable loss. I can't help myself. He's just so miraculous. And I have one more and then I'm done, team. This is from Aisha. Nope, lies. This is from Aisha, who's the beloved. If I can find my poems when they're supposed to be in places. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Did I just skip over it?
Take your time.
Everyone be cool. I got this, I promise.
Cool. Just build the anticipation. It's even better.
Building the anticipation. There it is. Found it. Starts at the bottom of the page. Okay, here we go. All right. So this is called Knives, and it's performed by Aisha, who is Dorian's beloved. My mother dreams of fish before anyone announces pregnancy in our family. But I always dream of knives. Her fish hold optimism, swimmers on the verge of evolutionary breakthrough. My knives glint fear, panic, blades capable of permanent damage. But this is not about vanity, elasticity, the countdown to a lover leaving. Really, this is about the many ways a body can flee. Knives come in all shapes, sizes, sharpness. I've dreamed about them for 3 nights now, and no one's announced. Maybe they aren't for new children this time. Rather, they come when I'm about to go under, to face my own slice and removal just before something vital or corrosive is to be extracted. Thanks, y'all.
Wow. Wow. Well, before I let you out of the hot seat, I'm just so, I mean, when we first met, I want to say it was at least 2020, maybe 2019.
Maybe 2019, maybe in 2019.
And you were, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were, if not working on this project, you were reading and discussing the Choreopoem. And I would just love to have you just talk a little bit about this project and how long it's been a work in progress. And, you know, so let's celebrate the hell out of this achievement.
Oh, yeah. So a Choreopoem is a choreographed series of poems that includes dance, music, live art, performance poetry, parkour, yoga, Zumba, if you're feeling frisky, voiceovers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically any kind of performance media rolled in together and thrown on stage like a play. The first Choreopoem was written by Ntozake Shange in 1975 with her pivotal work for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. We are grateful for Shange, though she passed away in 2018. Yeah, so me and alongside, like, I think there's 14 or 15 other people in the country who write Choreopoems, carry on her legacy by honoring her this way. And so this is my second published Choreopoem. It's my 5th overall, and I'm super jazzed to share this with y'all. I've been working on this since 2015, and I'm thrilled that it's finally going to be in the world. So yeah.
We are too, Monica. It's always a delight and a joy. Just 1455 will be happily shouting from the rooftops, but the world is going to find this work, and it's going to be very healing and very necessary. So thank you. Just thank you for being you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for being here. All right. Well, the party has started. Let's keep it going. I'm going to read her bio, and then I'm going to say a couple of quick words, but I'm delighted to once again have Calissa Ray in the house. She is, and I condensed all of your bios because they're so impressive, and we would spend the whole hour reading your bio. So let that be stated. But so Calissa is an award-winning poet, activist, and journalist based in Durham, North Carolina. Her latest post was senior writer for Jezebel magazine and content creator for BET. Her debut collection, Ghost in a Black Girl's Throat, was released in April 21 from Red Hen Press. She is a 4-time Best of Net nominee, 7-time Pushcart nominee. Currently, she serves as assistant editor of Glass Poetry, co-founder of Think and Ink, and the Writers of Color Speak reading series, and poetry instructor at Catapult. Her young adult novel in verse, Unlearning Eden, is forthcoming. And that is the short version. But Calissa, before I turn the cameras over to you, I just want to say, obviously, I mean, I adore your work. I adore your sensibility, but you have such a positive and contagious presence on social media. And it's such an antidote for me when we hear, and a lot of it's legit, but people complaining about social media is a black hole and it's full of negativity. And you're just always inspiring others. You're inviting others to your parties, but you're also celebrating the work other people do. So I want to just acknowledge and lift you up for, you're just a force of nature, and it's entirely positive. So you inspire me. You inspire the work 1455 does. So it's a tremendous honor to have you here. So thank you. The mic is yours. Do with it what you wish.
Oh my goodness, Sean, you're gonna make me cry. And I have to like get through these poems. That's so sweet. Thank you. And thank you for reading my bio. Many of that is outdated. So I wanted to share, what's going on now.
Yes.
So now I have, so I'm no longer with Catapult. I'm actually planning the first ever all Black Southern Writers Conference in Durham, North Carolina. So my husband and I, for the exact reason that you're talking about, we felt like a lot of the academic, elite, lit Twitter spaces were very othering and very isolating, even amongst Black and brown folks. And so we really wanted to bring back this sense of family and down home Southern hospitality where you like have a barbecue at the writing conference. And so that's what we're doing. So we're planning that at the same time, because I'm a, crazy person, I am writing my YA novel in verse and a romance novel. So my YA novel in verse is the poems that I'm going to be reading from today. And it's called Unlearning Eden. I am very inspired by my friend Monica Prince. She is a mentor of mine, as someone who took my first chapbook and like turned that into a stage play. And then now I'm writing this like building a world with this YA novel in verse. I'm just like so honored to call her a friend. We're gonna have Monica speaking and teaching at Griot and Grey Owl Black Southern Writers Conference, November 10th through 12th. So I'm just like, honored to be here with these beautiful people today. So without further ado, I'm going to read some poems from my YA novel in verse, if that's okay.
It's okay.
Awesome. Okay, so another thing that I was hearing in my bio is where I'm teaching, and now I'm a free agent. I teach all over, and we talk about in my classes about how like moving your brain from poetry and just like literal poetry with no world building, and then trying to move that over to a YA novel in verse is interesting. To think about like the fact that you just can't write an isolated poem, that you actually have to build a world and tell a narrative and build character. So that has been very interesting doing that in this. So I need to give you some context, a little bit of backstory. So the main character in my story's name is Gabby. And Gabby, as I'm sure you can understand from the title, is trying to flee her Southern Eden, if you will. So she's being raised by these dynamic, overachieving, powerful Black matriarchs, right? And through her matriculation through high school, she learns that she is queer. And of course, in a very, staunch conservative Black Baptist home, that is not okay. And so Gabby finds herself by transferring schools. She goes to an art school and learns the steps that she needs to unlearn and flee Eden. I'm gonna start with Ode to Uncommon Things. Some of y'all may have heard me read this poem before. Now it is in the collection of poems in Unlearning Eden, and has like sister and brother pieces that kind of like help build this world. It starts with a verse in Genesis that says, "He gave names to all the livestock, all the birds of the sky, and all the wild animals, but still there is no helper just right for him." Ode to Uncommon Things. If this world has taught me anything, it has taught me that we are obsessed with naming, with calling a wren, with deciding the weeping willow was heavy with grief, with echoing the words nightjar and picturing a nocturnal hawk. Maybe it's the godlike power of it all, the villain of conjuring titles, calling a thing broken and watching it fall, then calling it chosen and watching it rise like Phoenix. Who are we to be cataloged and filed? All of us just common things waiting to be named uncommon, waiting to go from bird to nightingale, from pigeon to white-winged crestback long-tailed widow. The sonnet we hoped would be penned for our razor-backed and colored stripes were unwritten. Instead, we watch while handkerchief and pitch pipe got 83, momentums to things less miracle than we, time spent crafting sustinas to shoes, penny loafers, and pocket watches, but we are not listed among them. We, the uncommon silvery tokens that we are. I'm gonna keep going through the story. So Gabby is raised by her mother, her aunt, and her grandmother. And in this world, men kind of don't exist in the world that we're building here. So her father left at a very young age, and her mother told her that her father had passed away. And later she learns that as self-righteous as her mother is, her mother has some secrets. So she finds out that her father is actually living. And so in that uncovering secrets, Gabby also learns how to like own herself, her body, her sexuality in a way that she was shamed about. This is Shrinking Women. Dear Alice, do you remember shrinking arms and limbs inside the smallest passageways? How the rabbit hole turned you contortionist, sinking rib cage, shrunken head of a woman? Do you remember collapsing shut, downsizing your dangerous, making minuscule of your mouth, how they told you to be bite-sized, compact, crumb meal to be devoured? Do you remember that they gave you the key, told you to enter with small hands, promised you milk and honey on the other side, and you believed them? You consumed their magic potions, fasted on their ideals of beauty as a means of survival. We all did, all of us, curvaceous space takers, attending tea parties, dressed in self-doubt, scarving down empty calories of self-loathing, each staircase a comparison sending us spiraling off with their heads, off with the pounds. We diminished to hide our dangerous expansion, winding through tattered mazes of people-pleasing and playing nice, all while busting at the seams of brilliant. They were hoping that we'd shrink so they could commercialize our size. Tell us to gain, then lose every inch of who we are, are watchers of stars, not of calories. We've spent a life serving parts, severing parts, chipping away at what they told us didn't belong at the table. But today I refuse to adjust to their narrow seats and size 2 skinny jeans. Today, I will not hunch to fit inside. I will not suck in to make others feel comfortable. Let the world expand for me. There is room enough for our trinkets and our tattered, our teacups and our cake. Here, we taste our reductions, we do not become them. We are brick houses with frames that can support our baggage and our bounty, bodies well handled with love and stricken with thunderous thighs that refuse to stop rippling. Thank you so much. So as I continue through the story, one of the things that I think is interesting is there's this crux moment in the book where Gabby has to tell her mother, well, not has to tell, but feels as though because she's gotten caught being rebellious and going to parties with her queer friends, and she's being seen doing things that she would have never done before she had this like eye-opening awakening. It's inevitable that she has to kind of come out to her mother in a way about being questioning, curious. And so this is through the looking glass that kind of talks about how fear-ridden Gabby is. Through the looking glass, telling your God-fearing mother you are attracted to women is like telling her the world isn't round the way she thinks it is. That we didn't land on the moon just once. That the sun isn't a yellow burning orb, it is a white dying star. That gravity is the attraction between our mass and the earth, and there's a reason why we feel weightless in space. That the ocean has never been, nor will it ever be blue. It is a yellow and red wound reflecting the most familiar haunting things. How do you tell her Mary didn't come to mourn the body? She came to siphon the blood. That Jesus didn't come to save us. He came to show us how to save ourselves. That the heart isn't really a heart at all. It is a pumping root that is steadily breaking itself. Thank you so much. I'm gonna close us out with a mini piece, and then I'm gonna pass it over to the lovely, beautiful women here today. Thank y'all so much for having me. This has been such an amazing experience. It is always a joy to come back every year to do this. This is called Yes, We're Thirsting Fields. And this is that moment where Gabby has finally reached the other side of Eden into kind of like a sexual liberation, if you will. Yes, we listened, and yes, God, we are broken-necked and trampled weeds. Yes, we are hopeless dandelions pushing through the middle of the field. Yes, like our falling, we are falling in reverence, the feeling of our knees on cold, lush earth here. Yes, our bodies splay open. Yes, heavy and hollow like unanswered questions. Yes, we were told to stay away from the fruit dangling, brimming with juice. Yes, we were told to keep our hungry hands off the low-hanging limbs and crimson casualties, but we touched anyway. Anything to not know we were naked here. Yes, we've tangled our branches and we've reached skyward, looked beyond this island, locked information. We weave our bodies like ivy. Yes, we knew there was another place we could settle these bones that were thirsting. It is impossible. Yes, to look away from the bear, to say yes to all the things we were told were forbidden. So intricately woven we are, thirsting, yes, here thirsting for a taste of rain. Thank y'all so much. This was a joy.
So thank you. I am not going to let you go just yet. Please remind everyone about the conference, when it's happening, and how people can find out more about that. And also, of course, I'm going to put all this information in the promotion and shout it out, but how people can discover you and what you're doing and your teaching and all that.
Yeah, so okay, first is the conference. It's called Griot and Gray Owl, gray with an E. So you go to griotandgrayowl.org everywhere. You can find it at Griot and Gray Owl on all social media channels. Registration will open, if all goes well, on August 1st. We are currently in our donor campaign, so be looking out for the Kickstarter that debuts this week. Yay! So that'll be everywhere. So that's how you get a vendor and participant application and registration information. So that's that. And then follow me and sign up for my newsletter at KalisaRae.com, because that's how you'll figure out where I'm speaking again, where I'm teaching, the event that I'm hosting next. I'm always putting together some series or program or in the community, doing work with writers and artists. So just check me out on my social medias at Kalisa Rae or KalisaRae.com, y'all.
And listen, folks, trust me, you've heard why you need to get this woman into your life, but trust me, follow her on all the socials, because it's going to inspire you. It's going to, like I said earlier, be an antidote to a lot of the noise that's out there. And you remind me, I've heard throughout my whole life, and I don't necessarily disagree, that when people say poetry, it has to be heard as well as read. And the cynic in me has heard so much uninspired poetry written or read lamely that I don't always agree with that. But this session every year reminds me to truly experience the artistry. You need to hear the person reading it. And I'm just in awe of you three and the others who have joined us in the past, reminding us that that is true. And when it's done at its highest levels, it just takes things to a whole other level. So thank you for that. And thank you, Kalisa, for always being here. You're the best. All right, let's keep things moving. Here's another one I'm going to read. I'm going to read the bio and then I'm going to say a few words. But El Renee, where do I begin with the luminous and effulgent El Renee? She is, among many other things, a poet and nonfiction writer currently living in Harrisonburg, Virginia. She works as the assistant director of the Furious Flower Poetry Center, that amazing organization, which I know she has a little bit more to say to us about. And she's an assistant professor of English at James Madison University. Nominated for Best New Poets, Best of the Net, and 2 Pushcart Prizes and counting. She is the granddaughter of proud Black Appalachians. She won the International 2022 Rattle Poetry Prize, and the poem is unbelievable. The Appalachian Review's Denny C. Plattner Award, among others, a recipient of fellowships from the Cave Canem Foundation and the Watering Hole. El Renee holds an MFA in creative writing from Indiana University, where she was nonfiction editor of the Indiana Review, and an MS in journalism from Columbia University, where she was a Joseph Pulitzer II and Edith Moore Fellow. El Renee, you know how I feel about you. This is not our first rodeo, both on this panel and talking about the world of poetry. Your poetry speaks for itself, and you're about to show us why. But I also just want to say thank you for being yet another force of inspiration, a force of nature of poetry and writing and empowerment. And you are a big fan of community, and that's how we first came together. So a big shout out to the Peter Bola Foundation in Winchester, where you were a visiting writer and we first connected and talked shop. But I follow your trajectory with reverence and appreciation. You lift up others, but you lead by example. So I'm just giddy, as always, to have an opportunity to hear you read your work in real time. So let me pass the mic to you. The room is yours.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Sean, for having me in this delightful reading with other wonderful poets. I feel really humbled and honored to be here and to, as you said, like continue building community As poets, we seem to always be only like a couple degrees of separation from each other. Like once we start talking, like, oh yeah, that person and that. So it's also like really a delight to meet the poets here, whose names I've seen, but I haven't had a chance to meet in person or virtually. So that's really lovely. And yeah, I have 3 poems. So I guess I might ground this by saying I am working on a manuscript that traces my speakers' ancestors from tobacco fields in Virginia to coal mining in West Virginia to Ohio, where she was born, and then ultimately her return back to Virginia. And I say my speaker, but AKA me in some ways, as a speaker and the poet. And really thinking about what Black Appalachian identity represents. I am someone who is grateful to be inspired by the stories of my ancestors, to be connected with them, and to want to make sure that their work and their worlds are visible in the larger context of American letters in many ways. So that's my charge and that's my work. I'm going to start out with this poem that is a poem that I wrote related to a tradition that my mother and I have, and many a Black girl and her mama or grandmama and them might have had, and that is pressing hair. And one of the things that I'm really grateful to have is truly tangible items that have been left behind from my ancestors. And one of the things that I remembered growing up was my mother using my grandmother, her pressing comb that she inherited. And so it's a tangible thing that I felt really enthralled by as a little girl that was being used on my hair. But thankfully, we don't do that no more. We welcome all of our kink. But this poem is called Tradition. By Saturday afternoon, the stovetop needed rest, but Mama said there's no rest for the weary. By then, her hands had already pressed spatulas into skillets of sizzling bacon, cheesy scrambled eggs, and Granny Smiths softening their sour peels in a pool of butter, a cloud of cinnamon and nutmeg crackling. This was our tradition. Full bellies after cleaning the apartment until it reeked of Clorox bleach, until windows were Windexed almost as transparent as air, but ours tinged fake pine tart, as if cardboard trees hung bright green from the newly glossed wood furniture. And still her hands pressed on, untangling my 2-week-old braids, soiled with playground sweat, dandelion dust, fuzzy wayward wisps left by an Ohio wind's kiss as I flung my blue beretted head back to predict the precise velocity my hand needed to pummel a tetherball so fast a sucker kid wouldn't have time enough to interfere with its perfect spiral, like the curled hair I longed for. Mama scratched my scalp clean with French tip nails and kitchen sink bubbles, foaming away stories of my days she always asked about. I sat in the back of our 1987 Ford Mercury after latchkey and her long paralegal shifts. The Navy box on wheels barely putted us home, exhaust letting out black plumes of smoke and gasps like gunshots. Mama pressed her foot down on the pedal to carry us to the weekend, where she cranked up the boombox loud enough to hear Mary J. Blige crooning about real love over the hairdryer, and shellacked my fro with scoops of Royal Crown Petroleum, dressing down the full shaft of my fluff, wielding the same oak-barreled pressing comb my grandmama heated on top an old coal stove in the kitchen of her mining camp shack, telling my mama, as mama tells me now, to hold down my ear when she covers near my temples, so scorching brass teeth don't take a bite of my barely worn skin. So that was our tradition. And I always, every time I read that poem, I hear the sound of the hot comb off the stove hitting my hair. So love, love, love mommy. Didn't love the pressing ritual though. I'm gonna switch over to a poem I wrote about. So again, we talked a little bit about I'm thinking constantly about inheritance. I'm thinking about our tangible inheritances, which is the pressing comb was one example of that for me, what was left behind, and also our stories. And so part of my work involves oral history collection. I've interviewed my elders about their experiences, particularly in hollers in West Virginia and small communities in Virginia. And in so doing, one of my elders was telling me this story about how she burned her hand. And she told it to me and it was in full color. And afterward, later that night, I should say, I heard a voice and I just kind of channeled everything the voice said. And that turned into this poem that was thankfully published and recognized in Rattle in a dialect that I heard. This poem is called Shoes. Shoes, Bluefield, West Virginia, 1961. First time I watched my sister set a fire. She's 12 and I was 8. Mama and daddy leave for a card party, which mean Rosie and Billy flee for their secret flames, which mean the middle kids, Harold and Velma and Lois, ain't too far behind them, spying. Foot knowledge can learn you faster than books. Dirt and rock and branch and bush be as kindred as kin. Then the house empty of all our beloveds, and it's just my sister and me. My sister and her school saddle shoes, which she did not love. They ain't had no scuffs, but brown specks caked them like dirty powdered sugar. Tintin white leather, pea yellow, lie could never make clean. My sister say her shoes too ugly to be redeemed. She say, redeem? Like it costs $5 whole. Slow and careful, like mama putting milk and butter and bacon and bread on account at the company store. Hoping daddy tagged enough coal cars, hauling loads large, enough to break even. Being that she had reached for that word and found she could afford it, my sister tried to free herself from 3 years of ugly duckling living, 3 years of wearing the same shoes to school since our folks would not replace what they could repair. She sees what she sized up as her only chance to waste leftovers. First, I thought she was kindling the stove's coal and wood chips to warm up pintos from last night's supper. But when heat hovered, hot as a piss spirit a horseshoe doorway couldn't keep away, when a hankering for new shoes flickered in her peepers like a just struck match, by the time I noticed her knowing strike, aha, lightning fast, it was too late to redeem her. The stink of melting skin and rubber blew through our kitchen. A groan slid slow and careful, like it was calculating a bill that ain't add up. Burner plate lid lifted, lard slathered leather, the fiery tongue tested and still clutched in her blistered fingertips, my sisters disbelieving. So yeah, that's that story. She tried to burn these shoes and she instead burned herself. And I cracked up because she was telling me, I was thinking about Kid Logic too. She was telling me about how she slathered on this lard thinking it was gonna help cook the shoes and did quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. So that's shoes. And I want to end with this poem. I've been thinking about my aunt lately who passed. I mentioned some family members' names in that poem, and I think about the importance of naming, right? And how some of those traditions in naming we carry through generations. And in this poem, I was thinking about my Aunt Velma who passed away, and thinking about our rituals around grief and loss. And so this poem is also based in part on an occurrence that happened during her funeral. Let me see if I can get a swig of something. This poem also has part of a hymn, and it was published in the Appalachian Review. Gone. It is the week after my eldest living aunt has, with us all in proximity, buried her sister. It is the second sister out of 9 siblings she has buried. Her youngest brother gone too. My Aunt Rosetta, of course, did not lift her 85-year-old tiny weathered limbs toward a shovel, did not plunge it deep into Pennsylvania dirt, did not evict all the tiny organisms happily soil rich and nutrient drunk to make room for a concrete vault, cocooning death from spilling into that dark, dank, underground world in which a crank, not my aunt's hand, lowered the silver shellacked box down slowly as a cracking voice barely squeaked out the song. Some glad morning, when this life is over, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away. Oh, glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, and the singer could not get to flight a 5th time. Her voice flipped by the squawk of a bird overhead, and we looked up into the lustrous blue, staring directly into that sun that swung white, covering everything in a quick blank flash like a camera capturing us and not the other way around. My aunt calls this a sign. We are trained to make myths of our losses, perfume our sadness with the incense of hope. Even ailments serve purpose. A palm itch means money is on the way. Aching bones promise rain will cleanse our debts. My aunt says her sister Velma, whose body languished in death, confused by breath and disinterest in food and drink, nurses with needles, bagged meds, and IVs, was singing back to us, letting us know she'd been flown the coop of that casket, done knocked on the doors of heaven and let into its gates, pearled and gleaming, done met her twin brother, born dead in the womb, the one no one speaks of, the one Aunt Rosetta sitting at the faux wood kitchen table near the TV broadcasting Lifetime dramas and ads for white sandy beaches, says she can still see in her mind's eye how he was not birthed yellow and hollering like Velma, but came without sound, came the same color blue as his Black daddy's eyes. Says she can still remember her daddy shuffling around the two-room shack a miner's pay borrowed, searching for newspaper to wrap all the lack, lodging, and his still beating heart, while he covered his stillborn namesake, carried him away, round the side of the mountain where men buried coal ash, where he might have hoped the boy renewed his strength, mounted up with wings like eagles, and took off singing, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. I tell Aunt Rosetta, so many of our men have fledged, have not permitted us the satisfaction of their deaths, have not even left us with a trace of white feathers. There is no hymn for this, no balm. My father, I tell her, was no bird. He did not crow, did not flap a brilliant plumage announcing as a white flag might his defeat. One day, he was just gone. My aunt tries to name all our living losses, for all we try to seek peace. Her son, once track star, turned marketer, turned hospital deserter after another man died beneath his bumper. Another son who lost language in a hospital bed after another man back crushed his head for stealing his woman without paying. Her grandson, whose head was so full of voices that he forgot his last name, knew only cardboard beneath palm trees near a beach lined with needles. She tries to name them. His. She stops. He was. She stops again. He would have been. We can't sing with certainty about our men. We don't look up at the sky and see their wings like Aunt Velma's cut across clouds. We won't toss chopped off rose heads at their buried beaks. We can't call them dead. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to respectfully observe that brilliance in silence. I don't want to pollute the genius on display by trying to comment on it. I'll just say that I think one of the things most of us would agree, our world increasingly lacks empathy. And while sensitivity has to be cultivated to develop empathy, I think education needs to occur first. And these voices are all so wonderfully nourishing and full of the history that's often not spoken about. We need to hear these voices so that we can understand ourselves better. And the three of you are doing that. So I thank you. And Elle, I just want to hear a little bit, like, you know, all the poets today are using narrative. You know, I mean, this is poetry, obviously, but this is deep narrative. And I'd love to hear you talk just a little bit about, is this a form that you found, you know, I mean, it's so obvious that this fits all the history and experience you're packing in, but did you arrive at a place where you kind of found, I need these to stretch out and breathe so I can incorporate, or Talk about your process and marrying this project you've been working on with the form and content you found.
Yeah, bless. I think that's been the hardest part of this manuscript, is that, I have narrative poems in the manuscript because for me, as a child, I was at my elders' feet, right? I was the listener of stories. I loved hearing the stories about the past because my grandparents died when I was very young. So I felt very cut off of this whole world that existed before I got here. And so I asked a lot of questions and I received a lot of that information. So narrative and storytelling, thinking about, as we've heard today, personas, right? Thinking about place as a kind of narrator, thinking about dialogue, thinking about music, right? All of these for me are ways in which I try to, as I say, quilt poems. But, my collection also features documents. So my grandfather died of Black lung disease. And so I have this, I had this obsession to find out, well, how did this progress? And how did he die this way? And it's a terrible thing. Like now we have a rallying cry of I can't breathe, right? But these Black coal miners literally died trying to breathe generations ago. And so my mind links these two together in very important ways. So I think that was really important to me, thinking about documents, thinking about my grandfather's coal mining card, thinking about newspaper articles my grandmother clipped out, our family Bible that still features locks of hair and braids, that has been passed down for generations. So for me, like narrative is in these multiple ways of storytelling and in the tangible things that we receive. Thinking about someone who said, this is important enough for me to keep. And this is important enough for it to be kept for 40 and 50 and 60 and 80 and 100 years, and passed down. What does inheritance mean for people who were once considered property themselves? And so that's something I wrestle with a lot and that I'm wrestling with in this collection. I feel so fortunate now to be back in Virginia working at Furious Flower, which is the nation's first academic center dedicated to Black poetry, working, inheriting, right, an institution that Dr. Joanne Gabin had the foresight to create and to archive. As I told you all before we recorded, these conferences that date back to 1994 with panels. So someone saying, I've got to keep this, this is important, is really in alignment with my own work. And so for me to be back here, situated in Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley, access to the Appalachian places and spaces that my ancestors called home means a lot to me. It means a lot to this work that I'm doing, and I'm grateful.
Well, thank you for that. It's extraordinary. I think if I dare say, if I may be so bold, I think one of the reasons that you and I immediately connected is we've really endeavored, through hard work, good luck, et cetera, a lot of factors, but we've endeavored to try to make our creative path overlap with our professional path and just try to let that always feed the work. I think I can say that about everyone that's here tonight, but I know, Elle, you and I have talked a lot about how do we seek out opportunities that we're not living these bifurcated creative and professional lives. You're always on. I think that's an extraordinary burden at times. It's a beautiful burden. It keeps us busy. It keeps us very engaged. But I just think your work on, with your pen and what you're doing down there at Furious Flower and your other initiatives really speak to the importance. And again, using that word, I guess the word of the evening is antidote. It's an antidote to despair. It's an antidote to apathy. So I look to you as a constant inspiration about how to be engaged and how to constantly connect and show people how this can work.
Thank you, Sean. I really appreciate that because we all need each other, right? We all need all the poems, all the people, I'm really looking forward to, I mentioned in September, I will put my plug in following Kalisa, September 2024, we're going to have the Fury's Flower Poetry Conference here at James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. This conference, as I said, is held only once every 10 years. And so we really want to have all the people from across not just the US, but across the world to have representation of the Black diasporic writing at this conference in September. So you'll hear more about that. We'll officially launch September 2023. So we'll have a conference website and all of those details. But I feel like to echo back what you were saying, the work that I'm doing as a writer and the work that I'm doing here complement each other. And it is really important to me that I've been a part of an inheritance, right, of a Black cultural institution, and that the space that we have at the conference will be making a space for new generation Black poets and our elders to come together. And it's for, I should say, it's for everyone. Everyone's like, oh, is it just for Black people? No. It's for everyone. We're highlighting and celebrating and preserving the work of Black writers. Of course, that's our charge. But we want to make sure that school children, that college folks, that community folks, that elders come to this space where we can gather and celebrate the work that's been done since the last 10 years, since the last conference, but the work that will be ongoing. So I thank you for providing a little tiny bit for me to blurb that. And of course, if you want to keep up with me, my website is lreneepoems.com. And I dip my big toe sometimes into Instagram. I'm not loyal, but sometimes I'm on there at lreneepoems as well. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I say with confidence, you and I will continue to talk behind the scenes and collaborate. So just an extraordinary joy, but I thank you, Elle. Our work is not done, but it continues. So thank you. Seriously, I mean, thank you for sharing the unbelievable words, but also the work you do for all of us. It means a lot. And I see my pal, Adrian Christian, has joined. Yay.
Please forgive my tardiness. I teach in this low residency program. And so I just got home yesterday from it after 11 days. And this meeting is on that calendar and it wasn't on my phone calendar. So when I got here and I walked right in and I said, oh, let me get on the call. So thank you.
Delighted that you can join us. Catch your breath while I introduce you. But I was already, this was already over the top. Now you're taking it into the stratosphere. It's an embarrassment of riches, as always on this panel. I'm so giddy. I'll try to dial it in, but I'm so happy right now.
Okay.
Let me read.
Wearing the wrong color lipstick. I thought I grabbed red and it's pink. So that's why this is not matching. And I'm looking at Renee, I shared a little cute red lipstick and I'm like, oh, coveting. So that's okay. We just gonna call this Valentine's Day and say
that's right.
Red is okay.
Come on, there's no wrong choices here. Okay. There's no wrong choices. All right, Dr. Adrian Christian is a writer and fine art photographer, among other things. She's the author of 3 poetry collections, Worn from 2021, A Proper Lover from 2017, and 12023 Woodmont Avenue from 2013. Common themes in her work are family, love, and African-American life. And I'll just say, Adrian, that's almost an offensively short bio. I tried to truncate. I was saying earlier, I'm truncating the bios just because you all are so extraordinary. We would be here the whole time just reading about your accomplishments, which would be fine to me, but that's almost too short. It sells you short. I will just say, and everyone that paid attention to 1455 knows that you are not a stranger to our family. This is not your first rodeo either, but when I read Worn, and I think it was before we met, but it doesn't matter. I I wish there had been a recording, although I'd be embarrassed by it because I was so engaged with the work and so in awe. I was throwing the book lovingly, if that's such a thing, like tossing it aside and needing to compose myself. But the shouts of joy and exuberance and ultimately enlightenment. And I know I've conveyed this to you before, but I want to shout it out from the rooftop. Your work has always connected with me. So on so many levels, I just appreciate you're always available. You are so positive and you grace us with your presence. So I thank you sincerely for always having the time for 1455. I love listening to you read. So take it away.
Okay, how many am I allowed to read?
As many as you want. I'm not going anywhere.
How many did everybody else read?
I think, what are we, about at 10-ish minutes per
10
person
minutes?
ish? So
Okay. So this is from my collection, 12023 Woodmont Avenue. It is a long, hairy title, but that is my girlhood address. So these poems, or this poem at least that I'm about to read right now, is from that collection. And I'll just give you a little bit of trigger warning. This is about childhood abuse and neglect. But you know, sometimes that happens, so it's okay to talk about it. This poem is called Dog in a Dead Man's House. I was a dog in a dead man's house. I was a tooth in a dead man's mouth. I was a rat in the family's den. I was a hog in the horse's pen. She spoke to me when she wasn't pissed off. She got pissed off when she looked at my face. I got my freckles and nose from my dad. He was a man set on being a rat. She was a girl with her head in her hands. She was a girl who just couldn't make ends meet up with no support check from my dad. I was the pain in the blood with no pad. She said, your dad needs to take care of you. He's got to feed you and buy you new shoes. He's got to learn to provide for his kids. I ate the roaches I found in the fridge. This next one I read last time I was here, but I've updated it. I think it's way better. I workshopped it. I don't know why I shouldn't have. I was so excited about having written it last time that I read it without having had eyes on it. And then when I had my crew workshop it, when I workshopped it with my crew, I was like, okay, it's much, much better now. So this one's called I Agreed to Be a Side Chick. And this is from my newest collection that I just finished. It's called The Brink. It doesn't have a publisher yet, but it's about a woman on the brink of emotional wellness. I'm ashamed to admit it, but during the pandemic, I was so alone, I agreed to be a side chick. We met online. We'd meet up in my Jeep. We'd get takeout and eat it with the top off and doors open. Once we rode by his son's house, just to honk and wave and say, hey. But then he said, hey, just because you met my son, that doesn't mean we're in a relationship. Christmas, he bought and brought me good gifts. When we could finally fly, he took me on a romantic trip. But after the flight, in the Uber, when we kissed goodnight, and I asked him if he wanted to spend the night, he said, we're not in a relationship. Any home maintenance issue I had, he'd fix it. If I had a poem or story published, he'd read it. I like Dr. Teal's bubble bath, and he'd meet me at the Walgreens on Bitters Road and buy it for me. We'd get coffee and donuts from the Shipleys next door. We'd hop in the back seat. He'd pull my dress up, my panties down, and really go downtown. We'd baby wipe his beard and both grin in the afterglow. But then he'd say it, just so you know. Yeah. Okay, let's see what's next. how about this one, since we were talking about lipstick? This one is also from 12023 Whitmont Avenue. It's a poem about how girls learn their sexuality from their mothers. You know, when we first learn how to apply makeup, it's because we see our mothers doing it. You know, usually her breasts are the first ones we see, you know, before we have our own, etc. So this short poem is called Lipstick. Mornings in the mirror remind me of my mother in her panties, bra, slip, and lipstick. How I'd sneak small sips of her tea to get some. And let me read you a couple more. I should probably share this. Here are the covers. I don't have a copy of Woodmont Avenue here with me. This is A Proper Lover. This is Worn. I got to give a shout out to Monica Prince for choosing Worn. Thank you for that. Yeah, how about this one? Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. This is one I don't usually read. So it's hard when you do these readings because, you've got your favorite poems and everybody's got their favorite poems. And so I tend to read the ones that I always read. But since, you guys have been my audience before, how about I read something that I don't usually read, okay? Okay. This is called Estate Sale. Bree's grandmother had finally died. She was a wreck, so I came to help. I cooked, I cleaned, I called and made arrangement with the folks who would do Miss Esther's estate sale. The man from Capital Estate Services came with his calculator, saying what was worth what and why. All Bree could do was lie on the floor and cry. She said just one thing she wanted to keep was her mother's emerald ring to give to the woman who always drove her to church, Miss Mamie. This is when the fat man started to sweat. Oh, don't, he cried, pulling it out of her hand, placing it back on the display. He turned to me and mouthed, please tell your friend she should never give away anything she can sell. And that was my mother's advice to me on prom night. Don't give away anything you can sell. And now there are two of us face down on the floor as the man goes about doing his business. Portrait of Everyone's Nana. That Christmas tree at Rockefeller Plaza reminds me of my aunt's song. It's shaped like her, and bright like her too. Her house would always smell like pine sol, and she kept the Christmas lights up year round. On Christmas, this woman would get so many presents, she'd have to ask the givers to take them back. Hold on for them to me till next year, she'd say. Right now, so many gifts, she can't even walk in her living room. She was all the neighbors' auntie song, and we all called her that because one morsel of anything she'd bake for you and you'd start dancing in your chair at her little kitchen table. Your legs would become the Rockettes. Your grown ass would end up seated up on Auntie Song's big lap, wrapped in her house coat with the umbrellas on it, telling her everything that had ever happened to you. Thank you. So how about one more? Another.
At least.
Okay. Okay, I can do two more.
Do it.
Here's another favorite one about work. Sometimes I like to write in form. And this here is a pantoum about what happens when we as creative people are stuck in jobs that don't allow us to be creatives and what that does to our souls. Okay. The ad agency workers. No one wants to be here in boxed in solitude. We won't make art we fear, creative flow subdued. In boxed in solitude, we wait here for our tasks, creative flow subdued. We do just what boss asks. We wait here for our tasks, the same ones as last year. We do just what boss asks. Why even keep us here? The same year after year, because this model worked. To it, we must adhere in khakis and blue shirts. So the boxed in solitude, there's cubes. And, you know, yeah, working in a cube. There's some language in this next poem, but it's about what happens to women when we get married oftentimes. And, you know, despite what we may be feeling, what we might be going through, you know, our husbands still expect us to do it to them, you know, and do our wifely duties. No matter what we're going through, we still have to do that. So this was about me having lost my baby and still needing to make my husband happy. Okay, it's called Titty Fucking After the Miscarriage. We do it on the floor, his belt binding my boobs. I do it to have use for them now. Thank you, guys.
I've read that particular, and honestly, I think when we first met, Adrian, I don't remember, and it doesn't matter, but I saw that online before I got your book. And for a variety of reasons, I just remember telling my wife, like, that's poetry. That contains that's a novel in 4 lines. So that you know how I feel about your work, but I'm so glad you read that. It's it's bearing witness, but I remember reading that poem. I just want to lavish you with my modest compliments, but I remember thinking, this is a poet. Like that's a mic drop.
I just got chills. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I'm crazy about you, Sean. I'm crazy about your poetry. As you know, I've taught it. I appreciate the way that you write Black people. I appreciate that you know, our fam. I appreciate you doing this for us Black women poets. And just know that the feeling is absolutely mutual. You made me a jazz fan. You made me a fan.
Mission accomplished.
Yes.
Well, we talked about it earlier, and again, for a variety of reasons, I want to say this is not about me. It's never about me, but I'll just say, I think it was El Renee saying earlier, and I bit my tongue as I just have so much to say, all of it positive about all of you, but you are so right, Elle, when you talk about, you know, Black stories or Black history. And I didn't want to say this because you just want to be very careful, but Black stories are world history. And among many other things, that's part of what's lacking, right? That's part of why there's pushback right now. That's part of why everything becomes political, because the people that need to hear these stories the most are the ones that don't hear them and actively want to avoid others hearing them. So when people ask me, why do you write about jazz? One answer is because I love it and it's an inextricable part of my life, but it's like, why wouldn't I write about jazz? You know, I'm not pretending to be, and not all the jazz musicians are Black, right? But it's like, we need to write about jazz. We need to listen to jazz. We need to celebrate why this art form that was invented and perfected by Black musicians is part of something in American heritage that we should celebrate. Yes. We shouldn't just recognize, we should be celebrating this. So I'll keep it, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I'll just say that.
But I feel like we kind of need to, because most of my students are white students, and they are also trying to figure out what the politics are. You know, you said just a minute ago, you know, I've got to be careful, and they want to be careful, but at the same time, they want to talk about these things. So I think that it's great that we have this conversation. And one of the things that I tell them a lot is, you know, what flags us as Black people when we see white people writing about, you know, us, is that too many times they feel inclined to write down, right? It's like the homeless Black person or the war-torn Black countries, etc. But you write up, you know what I mean? Like you are like you said, a celebration instead of, you know, like a trauma porn. So I just really, really appreciate and respect that about you, Sean. Thank you.
Well, thank you. But I listen, part of me is like, more, please. Enough about, I don't want to talk about, I really want to, you guys always, and it's obviously not just our annual get together, which I live for, but throughout the year, as I've adequately conveyed, it's this ceaseless inspiration, certainly for me, for 1455's mission, but I think anyone that's checking this out now or will check it out at a future time, this is how you get engaged. This is how you become part of a broader community, both creative and otherwise. And this is how you fight the negativity that we are so hit with every day, in the news and in media and social media. But you guys, when I say I want to choose my words carefully, it's that I want to let you all speak for yourselves, because you do, and you do it very well. But I just want to say, this isn't just Black women poets that I want to celebrate. It's very much that, but this is poetry. I don't read or hear poetry like this. So for me personally, this is the bar that is being set. And it just reminds me all the time, this is why we battle. This is why we persevere in the face of rejection and solitude. To see it done at its highest level is certainly the oxygen and the fuel that I need. So all the thanks are mine. It just wouldn't be the same if you all weren't here to do this. So year after year, I never take it for granted, but I'm always so deeply appreciative. And I'm happy to do my very modest but genuine part to lift up your all's voices, because they need to be heard.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. So to be continued, right? What else is there to say? Of course, when we do our promotion and at the 1455 site, we will be linking to all of your work. Okay. I encourage everyone checking this out now, go seek out this work. It will change your life for the better. And stay tuned, because we are going to be trumpeting your all's accomplishments. And hopefully we will continue to meet and celebrate this great work. So I have nothing other to say than thank you. Thank you both. They're still here. Thanks to Kalisa. Thanks to Monica. Thanks to all of our community. And thanks to you watching for checking this out. Be well, go in peace, have a productive summer, and we will talk soon.
Sounds good. See you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Cheers.